Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spin Legal. It's April 30th, 2025, and it's episode 64. And with joining Angela and myself today is Justin. Hi, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing great, Peter. How are you doing?
Yep, we're doing good.
How are you doing?
Yep.
So we're going to be talking more about
day.
Oh, I know.
It doesn't stop after the show's finished.
No, it doesn't stop. It's still got work to do.
Never really does it?
Yeah, the work's always there. It still stays there.
Yeah.
All right. And okay, so welcome everybody to our second episode on enforcement of environmental law. We were talking broadly a few weeks ago about what environmental law was. So Justin's back today. Welcome, Justin, with some enforcement things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and looking forward to this.
Yeah. Okay. So just to introduce everybody, if you need to contact Invictus Legal, you can do so on 905-688-5598. Email Angela at angela@weareinvictus.legal, me at peter@weareinvictus.legal, or even Justin at Justin, Justin, at weareinvictus.legal. There you go.
Yeah, if you have questions about what you've heard today, and Justin's the guy to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. So if you need anything environmental, Justin can help. That's right. Okay, so moving to environmental law. Okay, so let's talk about investigation versus inspection.
Okay. Well, with inspections, you have inspection officers at the provincial level. They go to look for environmental defects or problems, such as contamination or spillages or other problems that, say, corporations are having. Whereas an investigation, they are looking for environmental offenses that were deliberate and premeditated.
So an inspection might just be a random inspection that's going to be doing, I don't know, a property on Buchanan Avenue, and it's just the number came up, and that's the one it's going to do at 12 Buchanan Avenue, right? Yeah. It's an industrial complex. So it's their time for an inspection right now.
Yeah, that's correct, more or less. Whereas an investigation well, it's not covered under the criminal code. That would be covered more under the Environmental Protection Act of Ontario, and there are consequences for it, up to and including jail time and fines. And we'll discuss that later on in the conversation. So,
but an investigation starts where presumably I'm walking past said place and I look at it and I go, that looks odd to me. Why have we got yucky, white, smelly liquid on the car park of this place?
No, that's correct. Yeah. It's,
and I phone up MECP or somebody else like that and say, hey, got a problem.
Or the city or the province. Region.
Exactly. Well, the city does play a role in enforcement as well, but they deal with much smaller matters. What I'm going to be discussing tonight is primarily provincial and some federal as well.
Okay.
All right. So, So anything else to add about this question about investigation versus inspection?
Well, you have to give proper notice if you're doing an inspection or even enforcement for that matter. Now, enforcement, and I'll mention this again later, that is a chargeable offense under the EPA or in the Environmental Protection Act, and you can actually be sentenced to jail or get a fine up to $100,000 per day.
A day. Ooh, serious stuff.
This is taken very seriously, and
And that's not just a littering offense either.
No. This is something if you're putting biocontaminants or radiation or other things into the environment as well.
So if I was carrying a small nuclear bomb or something.
Stop it. Sorry?
So if I was carrying a small nuclear bomb or something.
Well, I think at that point it would go up to criminal code. But no, under the EPA, that would be the auspices under which these offenses would be prosecuted. So.
No, under the EPA, you would actually have a nuclear site where you didn't have any protection from radiation, and that said radiation was leaking from your site.
Yes, that would certainly be an offense, and it might possibly be a federal offense under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act as well. But it's hard to it's hard to say. Maybe it would maybe both.
Well, I was just putting the nuclear bomb one into a different perspective, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. So it's an important question with a lot of people. Who's responsible for the cleanup?
Well, who is responsible is one of three individuals or entities, as I would say. If a company itself has committed some kind of environmental offense, they are responsible. Now, if a prior owner has committed the offense and a new one has come in, the new owner is responsible. However, they can sue the previous owner for damages. And the third instance is where a neighboring property or a neighboring entity has caused the pollution on the site of the entity that's being.
So, for example,
but they can also sue for recovery damages as well.
Yeah, like for example, like the old GM plant here in St. Catharines on Ontario Street, that used to be owned by GM, and then it's changed hands 500 times since. Right? Like, is the people that are now owning it, are they responsible?
They would be, yes, but they could sue. It would depend. I mean, according to what I have read and what I can interpret, it would be the most recent owner who would be.
So if you've just recently acquired an old industrial land like the GM site, without making any specific allegations, but you start to develop it because you want to put some new use on it, and now you find out you've got a nightmare, an environmental nightmare that costs you $15 million to fix.
They got housing
you can now sue the old industrial owner, the original landowner.
What would happen is in a case like that, the owner of the plant, let's say, they would be called on the carpet. They would be ordered to do the cleanup or pay the fines or whatever. However, the owner of the site that's been contaminated, they can sue the previous owner for damages in terms of cleanup and whatnot. So I mean, it's kind of a two-way street, so to speak.
But if you buy the site and you know that it's polluted, would that be more on you as opposed to the?
Well, they may not have realized it was polluted, and
I'm looking at foreseeability and other things.
How can you enforce it? Well, again, it's enforceable under the Environmental Protection Act, and you would have investigation officers, and you can be tried under the Environmental Protection Act. In court, and you can face imprisonment and or fines depending on the severity.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the brownfield.
If you were running a plant right now, and you said, "Hey, ours is a clean plant. We don't produce any waste," and maybe your operations do not. but prior uses of the plant may well have created waste that may well be in the soil, everything. So there's a potential that you could be responsible for the cleanup.
Yes.
In such a situation.
Yes, but they can go after the previous owners, as I said previously. For
you can sue them. You can sue them subsequently when all is said and done.
Yeah, to recoup lost income and other penalties or fees they had to pay. So.
And there's a practical element to that, isn't there? Because what it means in practice is that the current owner has still got an operational business going. I was going to say factory, but so they have an operational business, and they have to still continue to operate their business.
That's right, because of strict liability, and we'll be discussing that later on in the interview. So.
Yeah. Okay. So that whole point about cleanup, I know a lot of people are very concerned about cleanup because, it's always the first thing. I suppose a lot of people, when they see something like, I suppose, funny colored water leaching into a local river or stream or pond or something, causes an immediate panic.
Yes. Yeah, it can. It's not unheard of, to say the
least. Yeah, and of course, anybody can be the person who goes and reports it to the Ministry of Environment or the local city or whoever's the technical person who's responsible.
Yeah, correct. That's absolutely right. And there have been some interesting cases. There was one case. When I was at Brock, I had taken a political science course in environmental management, and we had an environmental inspector come in, and this man was one of the most intense men I ever met. Cannot be bribed, doesn't drink, does nothing like that. And one of the cases he handled was that. This one individual was dumping acid into a field, and children were being burned as a result. And he went and cracked this case, and it resulted the owner of the field, in this case, was his one of his closest friends, and he got sent to prison for it. And there was another there was another incident. Like, I asked him, "Have you ever been bribed in your career?" And he said the closest he ever came to being bribed, he was on a farm for some kind of minor offense, and it was an immigrant who ran the farm, and the closest thing he got to a bribe was the guy tried to give him a carton of eggs.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean, you have to be careful of that, because there could be bribery and other stuff as well. I mean, not all of them are as ethical as this gentleman who I had. So I mean,
I'd like to think in the ideal world that most spills are probably accidental to begin with, and it's only once the responsibility is pointed out, well, you need to fix it, that you might not even know that it was coming from your plant, for example.
Well, exactly. I mean, but again, it's due diligence and strict liability comes into play as well. That's the thing. I mean, you may not be aware of it, but you are still legally liable for it. So it's
oh yeah,
depending on the circumstances, and we'll discuss that more later on in the interview. So it's
okay. All right. So enforcement of environmental law, I think, is the next area we need to walk onto.
Mm-hmm. Right. There are, if you are dealing with federal offenses, there are two acts that are usually the most common ones that are used to enforce environmental law. It's the Canadian Environmental Protection Act and the Fisheries Act.
Okay. And obviously fisheries, one of the key factors about fisheries is we don't think about how the water can get severely impacted in a
exactly, and this can impact fishermen who are relying on this for their livelihood.
Yeah,
and
or
also,
fish farms and things like that, right?
And it can also affect other like recreational fishers. I mean, you eat a contaminated fish, and God help you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And with fish farms, etc., on certain rivers, that could be pretty disastrous.
Oh yeah, it is. It can definitely be. I mean, you are basically putting other people's lives at risk.
Yeah, and for example, if we're in the Niagara region, and for example, everything that flows through the rivers in Niagara goes through the Great Lakes system, ends up on the St. Lawrence.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
and the impact might well be 1,000 or more kilometers away.
Yeah, and even it could be there, and even like a small fishing pond, for example. I mean, it's not just limited to large bodies of water.
Yeah.
Just I mean, what can I say? I mean, it can be very widespread and very dangerous. So
yeah. Okay. All right. So continue on about enforcement.
Okay. Well, this would deal now with responsibility. Now, directors and corporate officers, they can be held to account for this under certain situations because of due diligence. And what they would have to do is either prove that they did take necessary steps to try to prevent this, or they were just completely ignorant of the fact that pollution was happening. But no, there are very serious consequences because of strict liability.
And due diligence is a very high bar.
It is, and so is strict liability for that matter.
Yeah,
and it's a high bar, but what can I say? It's it forces members of the board and the officers, they have to be held to account under this legislation, and much like certain criminal acts as well. I mean, these aren't criminal code offenses, but still, I mean, they can be fined or jailed or whatever.
There are heavy administrative penalties that could be attached to them, as well as jail time.
Yeah.
That's like the provincial offenses court. It's not criminal code, but they could be put in jail over a suspended driving charge.
Oh yeah, you can indeed. Yeah, exactly. I mean, just because it's not a criminal code offense doesn't mean like you get a jail card. It's by any means.
Well, due diligence is basically, these are the types of offences that are automatic. You went through it's somewhat like you get a speeding ticket because you went through a speed camera breaking the speed limit.
That's absolute liability. Yes, I mean,
it's an absolute liability case, and due diligence is the only defense to an absolute liability case.
So strict liability.
Just strict liability.
Wouldn't that be strict liability?
Yeah, but there is a difference between strict and absolute liability. Like
absolutely, you kind of defend. You kind of try to argue the amount, the fine, and the penalty.
Well, that's it. All you can do. Like I had gotten a speeding ticket about 5 or 6 years ago, and The officer was very friendly. He even recommended a paralegal I could approach. But that being said, he pointed out it's absolute liability, and you're going to have to face the consequences. Not that I was trying to evade them or anything, and and we shook hands at the end, but it doesn't matter. I was
doing a job.
Yeah, no, he was doing his job, and in fairness, I was responsible. So it's there you go.
That's what they're doing now. They're making these speed things like those robots and those cameras.
Well, this was a little more than a speed thing. And this was like an accident. Like no one was hurt or anything, but it doesn't matter. I was nailed anyways. It's
oh yeah, they'll hang you.
No one was hurt, so thankfully. But
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. Speed would apply to that as well.
So it's very this is where you do it, and then of course when you do stunt driving, then that becomes more of a
criminal offense.
Then there's a mens rea and other types of things to it where you're
yeah.
Well, and again, what we're talking about here with environmental law, as you stated, strict liability. The fact is it happened.
Yeah, the fact is it did happen, and it's like I just said previously, you have to prove that you took necessary steps to avoid it, or you were just totally ignorant, which would be, I think, a little more difficult to demonstrate. I mean, they don't have to prove anything, but still, it's I mean, it's a defense you don't see very often.
I think one of the biggest challenges of something like environmental law is often you could walk down the street that we're on, perfectly good, no problems whatsoever. But what you don't realize is there's an environmental nightmare underneath your foot.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, and even noise. Is considered like an environmental detriment. There's environmental noise. It's litter and whatnot. I mean, it covers a very broad range.
Yeah. And I think it's actually that it does cover a very broad range, but also that issue about for example, if you had a factory that was in operation for 50 years, and over that 50 years, all the standards about the standards and the laws all changed over time, and even the most diligent factory said, "Oh, okay, I didn't realize that was illegal anymore. Now let me upgrade my systems." But it's quite possible you have an environmental nightmare underneath the factory.
It could, but I would point out, as I'm sure that both you and Angela are aware, ignorance of the law is no defense at the end of the day.
Oh, I know. And at the end of the day, what I'm saying is that you're building up a nightmare underneath the factory, but and the point being is until you cease operations at the factory, possibly nobody even knows those that even exists.
This is entirely possible. Again, they have to demonstrate either that they genuinely didn't know, the board genuinely didn't know what was going on, or if they did, they took appropriate actions to try to mitigate or stop it. So.
Is there any kind of law where, say, if I'm buying a factory or a factory building, is there some kind of law where the person who's selling it to me has to disclose anything?
I can't really speak to that, but again, if they buy it, it's caveat emptor. Environment. It's.
And actually here, so that's actually an interesting question, because, for example, if that factory has been in use for like 50, 60, 70 years, and it and let's say it was abandoned in the 80s, clearly the company who had it back in the 80s may not no longer own the land, and that company may no longer be in existence.
Well, that doesn't excuse the current owners from responsibility, though, for cleaning it up. And,
I grant that. I grant that, but it also means that their recoverability of,
it's zilch, basically. So.
Yeah, is zilch. Yes, exactly. You know, and hey, when you think about it, with industrial land, you know, we hope and pray that people have been responsible with it, but all it takes is one bad company to have not been responsible.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, and I'm not saying all companies operate that way. I mean, I would tend to think most of them do follow ethical practices and don't engage in deliberately, at least, in environmental pollution or.
They don't want their brand attached to that type of thing.
No, absolutely not. No, they don't want they don't want that. And I also think that they do have consciences as well. It's
Well, and also we have to accommodate for the fact that there's differing standards in different eras of of business. What was acceptable in, say, the 1950s, 60s, and 70s may be totally out of order today.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is an evolving field, environmental law.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't just exist in a bubble.
Yeah. But there are many places whereby an industry continues on, and just is continued on for the last 50, 60 years or more.
Sure, it's and that does happen, but that doesn't excuse them from.
I know.
The current laws that are applicable. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
I'm always curious because back to the GM land again. Always curious because there was some kind of thing with that the city was thinking of going after. At that point, was the owners of that property. It was previously owned by GM, and then I think it was Bayshore Developments or somebody who took it over. And then they wanted to go after Bayshore, but then Bayshore sold it to somebody else.
Well, on what basis were they? I'm just curious. On what basis?
Clean up.
Yeah. Okay.
And the thing is, people know about this, and this is well known in St. Catharines. And it's a complicated issue because that was it. And the city of St. Catharines was even thinking of suing the company to make sure they can pay for the cleanup.
And they could do that under the EPA, certainly. Because the company that you had mentioned. The most recent owner would be held liable.
Yeah, it was a new company. It wasn't Bayshore. Bayshore is now the old company now because they switched a couple times.
Oh boy, kind of like playing musical chairs.
Yeah, they do this all the time. It's like companies they play the corporation games when they have it's like rental buildings. They do that all the time.
Yeah, but again, Again, a company may well have bought in assuming that they can actually convert it to a use that they desire, and it turns out they can't, or it's too costly or something like that, and then they sell it on.
Yeah, because there was always talk about building housing on that property.
Yeah.
And same as there was always talk about building housing on the old hospital property.
Yeah. And if you think about it, those two properties are ideally placed for building housing on them, in terms of what is surrounding that area, except for the fact that what's on the land, the mess that's on the land.
Exactly, and this is where I've always had concerns, where that has to be dealt with before you start allowing housing developments to be built, because that was known as a known cancer cluster.
Yep.
Okay? Especially for people who've lived in the area, they're aware of it. And this is where I've always saying, But if you're not aware of it, like, and then you buy housing in the area,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
then you
it's like buying a house on Love Canal, right?
yeah, that's
Jeez.
why I've always said that.
That's an extreme example, but yeah.
Oh yes, Hooker Chemical Company.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, whoever did that whole development on Love Canal, and we're talking Niagara Falls, New York here, that was clearly an irresponsible development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, it was to be certain. Yeah, I'm familiar with the case. So it's,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would be very difficult now. Do you think any kind of repeat of something like that would be possible today?
Do I think so? There are so many factors involved, Angela. I mean, it depends on the corporations, the circumstances, the leaders, that are involved. I mean, one can only hope that people have learned from history. And
Yeah.
so,
I've got one example. I've got one problem, one around the corner from where I live. 4th Avenue, Niagara Falls, the old YMCA property. The city denied there was any pollution on it. Right? They built a set of townhouses on that property, but yet in fact, it's there are people who believe that it is polluted.
yeah.
And that is the next Love Canal. It's not. It's in their belief. It's not if you get a cancer cluster. It's when you get a cancer cluster.
Well, in that case, the city of St. Catharines would be responsible for that.
Well, Niagara Falls, but yeah.
Niagara Falls. That's where the location of that particular thing on 4th Avenue in Niagara Falls.
Yeah, 4th Avenue.
I thought you were referring to 4th Avenue.
No. Like our 4th Avenue is different.
Okay, all right.
Mostly commercial.
Sorry for that, yeah.
Yeah. But it is very because this is why I kind of think, like how a person can get away with it, or can they get away with it today? I'm just kind of concerned because I think that we people have to have some awareness of some of these things and what people could get away with if, I guess, if they thought in their mind that they should or could.
Yeah, well, that's why environmental assessment, and I guess it's called environmental management these days, is very important. They have to, it's like I said in the previous interview, they have to check everything and make sure that the property is safe. They have to speak with potential owners. To make sure that they're not going to do anything, and they have to do a very painstaking process of analyzing and reviewing every document.
Yeah, and
included with regards to the land that they're developing. So, and that plays an important role.
Well, and that's a municipal due diligence thing that the municipality has a responsibility to the future residents of any area to make sure that there aren't any, that the proposed development isn't sitting on a.
You're right. You're right. It is a municipal responsibility, but environmental assessments can be hired with, or I shouldn't say with, by the private sector as well.
Yeah.
They can do their own. They're capable of doing their own investigations and deliberations and whatnot. I mean, it's a very interesting field. Myself, I would like to try to do some mediation in that field down the road, I should say. Sorry, I haven't had my traditional 8 cups of coffee today.
You only had 7.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's 7.5. Yeah.
All right. So let's get on
the magic number.
Yeah. So let's get on to that last category, which is environmental offences and the penalties. You alluded to the fact that jail time can occur.
On the table.
Again, let's look at, obviously, the vast majority of these tend to be fines, tend to be slaps on the wrist more than the jail time, right?
In the case of corporations, but if they can prove that say like a director or an officer, like say for example, had knowledge of what was going on and they withheld it or did nothing, or they conspired with other members of the board or other officers to commit these acts, they are facing serious jail time. I think up to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have to push it some way to be getting into that category, don't you?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, you would. I mean, it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't happen very often, but I mean, it is available.
Has it ever happened where somebody who is a director or officer of a corporation served jail time?
Best of my knowledge, I can't. I can't think of any offhand. Now, that doesn't mean to say it's never happened, but. It's like I said, the one investigator who spoke to us at Brock, he was implying that this guy was with a corporation. He was some kind of a director or an officer, and he knew with knowledge in the forefront what was happening. So he got sent to prison. So
okay, good. Yeah, because sometimes it's really good to have laws on the books, but if you don't use them, what's the point?
Well, it depends on a number of factors as well. Most often they will do fines, and that's more because of negligence than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like I just said previously. If this was done with knowledge, even malice, and a forethought. He thought you are in very serious trouble here.
Mm-hmm.
And again, of course, you talked about negligence. A lot of actually these types of things, spills and floods and things like that, often get on. Contamination onto neighboring land is often done by some form of negligence anyway, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is more often than not. I mean, that's been from what I've read and investigated. So.
Yeah. Okay. And I think penalties are there at the really at the end. The big penalties and the multiple years in prison are there as a deterrent more than expecting to be sending a lot of people away.
Well, yeah, it is used as a deterrent, and it's like I said, I know of very few people who have actually been imprisoned over offenses. But again, I mean, that doesn't mean it has never happened. I'm sure there have been instances in extreme cases. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly, and it has to be really deserving of it, right?
Well, it does. Like the gentleman, yeah. I don't even know why I'm calling him a gentleman. Like the individual who was dumping acid in a field and stuff, and children were maimed with acid burns as a result of this. So it's I mean that's not.
And so I'm just going to take a completely stupid one. So, for example, I don't know. Let's say that somebody poured a whole can of gasoline down their basement sink or something. And technically, it's an offence, but the chances anybody would find out about it would be slim anyway, wouldn't it?
Probably, yes, but that in no way lets them off the hook. I mean, if they were somehow to be discovered, it's I mean, well, first of all, I think that's extremely.
I know that was an extreme example, and it's highly unlikely because most homeowners wouldn't do such a thing. But but it's not. I'm sure it's not unheard of.
Oh no, I've heard of a lot of strange things that go on.
Like people pouring barbecue propane into the large propane tanks that heat the home.
Sure.
And had the person do that, and they didn't understand that was a the fire code offense.
Exactly.
Quite not surprisingly, considering that those propane tanks can actually decimate an entire city block. Some of the big
Yep.
ones.
Yes, and I've had these discussions, and of course he got caught doing it, and then somebody called the fire department, and then he got charged.
Yeah, no,
And then I wrote a stern letter to him. I said, "Don't do it again."
and just like in my apartment complex, there was an individual. What had happened was we had a resident who thought that there was some kind of a gas leak. So she pulled the fire alarm, which you are authorized to do if you suspect a gas leak. Now, the fire department came in and investigated the unit in question. Good news was there was no gas leak. Bad news was they were cooking meth. And even though they got criminal code charges, I would think that's a detriment to the environment as well, because I mean, cooking noxious odors and whatnot.
Well, the interesting thing is, of course, is that that's one of the few examples whereby a police officer can effectively evict a tenant from their property.
That is exactly what happened. You know, drug dealers and you know, whatnot. I mean, we don't have too many of them in the apartment.
And
God, but
you don't have a lot of meth cooks there, or?
we've had a couple, to be honest, but I mean, the majority are law-abiding, honest, decent citizens like myself. So it's,
yeah, absolutely. And it just
and I had a small claims case in relation to this guy who was cooking meth in his rental unit.
Oh yes.
Right. So yeah, it does happen. And essentially, because the LTB were not involved in the eviction of that individual, of course, that meant that we had to sue through the small claims court in order to recover money.
Remedy.
exactly. Yeah, just there you go. So it's it's just very interesting. I mean, environmental law covers so much, and it impacts so much on daily lives and whatnot. And if you want to practice environmental law, you don't necessarily have to have like a degree in environmental law, but I would recommend if you're going to pursue this as a lawyer or a paralegal, first of all, you've got to get a firm understanding of constitutional law. Because as I said in my previous interview, this was never covered under the BNA Act. It was not declared a federal or a provincial matter and whatnot. So I mean, it's kind of a split matter as a result, and as a result, you've got overlapping legislation and whatnot, and that would be my advice. And you can pick up other things on the go as you learn about environmental law. But
a guy who let's say is considers himself an activist insofar as he likes to see a nice clean environment that we live in. He works at an industrial an industrial facility, and his concern is that he comes home one night and there's a white smelly liquid flowing down the street or flowing out of a local industrial complex. That kind of thing is probably the most that most people are going to find that kind of thing as their environmental issues, isn't it?
Yeah, that is the most common, but there have been certain exceptions. There was one case actually where environmentalists got nailed. Ironically, this was in British Columbia, and what had happened was they were cutting down they had a corporation that was cutting down trees, which was perfectly legal. And they had environmentalists come in and start to protest. And the thing was, this was affecting the corporation because of their profits. It was affecting, unions because that was affecting their livelihood, and even indigenous communities because that was affecting their lifestyle and whatnot. So what they did was, and I refer to this as the unholy trifecta.
You're going to put something like that.
They went and they actually protested. They actually did a lockout of them. So it's it can go both ways, Peter and Angela. It's you have to be careful. You have to look at the other side as well. Like, I consider myself more of a conservationist in the vein of say Teddy Roosevelt, and to his eternal credit, he did so much to preserve the environment during his administration as president. I mean, I really thought he has never got full credit that he deserves.
And that's a long time ago. So people have been thinking about this issue for quite some time.
Yeah, he was very much a forward thinker, and and thank God he did that.
We need more of those forward thinkers.
Yeah, we do. We do indeed. And, there you go. But I consider myself more of a conservationist in that I believe in traditional ways of trying to preserve the environment. I'm not exactly up for, say, using, what can I say, chemicals or whatnot to try to advance like vegetation or anything, because I think, like, in the end, I think they're well-meaning, but it harms the environment more at the end of the day. I would favor more like organic solutions.
Yeah. Okay. So I use this horrible example earlier on, but if, for example, somebody's got a liquid, liquid that's been left in their garage, they've just bought a brand new house, and there's this liquid that's left in the garage that doesn't quite smell like gasoline, but they don't really know what it is. Are there places that people can take said things to be able to get them dumped?
Other than they could contact maybe the municipality. That is an option, but it would probably be more in the provincial jurisdiction.
Yeah. Okay. Because obviously, and most people want to keep the environment clean, and they're not going to throw that sludgy thing that they've just come across in an old gas can in a house they bought away, are they?
No, exactly. I mean, that's there you go. It's
All right. Okay. Anything else, Angela?
Yeah, because this is the kind of thing, like, there's a lot more movement. People are more concerned about the environment. And there's got to be more preventative features. What kind of laws do you think should be in place to protect and to preserve the environment other than enforcement after people get caught?
That is a difficult question because it spans so many areas, Angela. What I would like to do in my case is, well, I shouldn't say in my case, in my opinion, is maybe try to pass legislation to enforce, private entities and even municipalities, for that matter, to basically like clean up your act, both literally and figuratively. To do that, I mean, and I think you know me well enough to know I'm not necessarily in favor of state intervention all the time, but this is getting serious. And
but again, sometimes the state needs to step in when it's got a duty as a policing role.
No, I agreed, and like I said, this is becoming the environment is becoming a very precarious situation. I mean, if we don't do something, who can tell what the consequences are going to be at the end?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that would be there, or even if these corporations were encouraged to do voluntary, restrictions and stuff. I don't know how that would go over well, but certainly they can do it with municipalities and other maybe crown corporations or other governments, because I'm sure that some of them have been responsible even inadvertently. For some pollution.
Yeah. And okay, so if you were to find a modern corporation that is being irresponsible, obviously you would, as an individual, you would probably call somebody like the MECP.
Yeah, I would do that, or I would contact, depending on the severity, either the provincial government or even the federal government, depending on how widespread this was. And I would, of course I would, do that. I mean, I am an environmentalist / conservationist. I mean, I don't go around, hugging trees.
I can't see you hugging trees, Justin.
Pardon?
I can't see you hugging trees.
No, but that doesn't mean I don't care about the environment in general. I just have a different way on how to handle it in the situation of the day, because it is something that I do care about, and a lot of people care about it. This is my own opinion, but I think the private sector, if properly encouraged, can do a lot to alleviate these environmental problems. And what you have to do is show them the bottom line at the end. Show them look, if you started performing environmental activities and whatnot, look at the money you can yield, and the entrepreneurial aspects as well. I mean, and I think that would be, and again, this is my opinion, but I think that would be a very good way to help promote it. It's like, you can't, you've got these Greenpeace activists who are going around calling corporations horrid scum and stuff. It's like, oh, okay, well, guess what? They're not going to cooperate with you at all. You're going to devolve into name calling and stuff. What you do is try to appeal to them in other ways, and you can get them as successful allies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they had the private sector, and they were kind of, say, modeling, and then how they could support preserving the environment, and then they would make it the in thing to do. And sort of when we talked about the cap and trade system and other system, what are all placed on marketplace models.
Sure.
As opposed to somebody from up high saying you can't do this or can't do that. But they can purchase carbon credits off companies that are not polluting.
Yeah.
And if you have a more higher industrial emission. So these are things that a lot of them would start figuring out. And over time, your cap will start gradually reducing. And then that helps you say, okay, in the future, I'm not going to be doing it this way. I'm going to have to find a way to employ some other technology to reduce my emission.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it is. And I will say this, I am going to give a shout out to the former Green Party leader, Jim Harris. He is, he was, when he was leader of the party, a blue-green. In that, unlike previous leaders and his predecessors, he was actively working with the private sector to try to get this, and it got to the point where in 2004, when it looked like the Conservatives might form a minority. I had spoken with him one time at Fair Vote Canada, and I asked him, look, would you have agreed to a coalition government with Harper? And he said, absolutely. We would have a signed and sealed agreement about 50 pages like they do in Europe. And, that shows to me also that Stephen Harper was, is willing to consider, environmental reforms that, I would say untraditional ones also, but Jim Harris deserves, to his eternal credit, he did a lot, and by God, did he pay a price within his own party as a result. It's very unfortunate the way he got treated at the end. It's,
Yeah, this is something when you try to do politics with it, and it should be more of let's look at things in an innovative way, and let's see how we can continue.
Well, Harris was a former conservative or a former red Tory, so I mean that's where his leanings were, and not that I'm criticizing him or anything, but he's one of the environmentalists who I truly respect, and I think it's unfortunate he's not leader anymore because he's got a lot of great ideas, a lot of initiative, and had he actually formed a coalition with Harper, I mean, who knows where we would be today? So it's, but there you go. I mean, it's like you said, it's just all politics in the end. So it's
yeah.
Okay.
All right, and this field is largely a political nightmare, and we're best not going down the political tunnel.
Yeah, don't go down that rabbit hole. Just gone through an election.
Oh yes.
I just had one, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they want to return. One of the parties wanted to return plastic straws. Okay. This is a big priority.
I've got a couple. I'm an environmentalist that lives in the real world, so.
I've got a couple of them somewhere, but hey, I'm sure they're not that big a priority, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I forget which one, but somebody wanted to return plastic straws, and I said, "Oh my God, don't we got bigger problems to worry about?"
It's not about return; it's about let's stop producing them.
Yeah, exactly, and give them incentives to be able to create straws that are not too much plastic in them.
Yeah.
Hey, there's other ways to do a substitute. Yeah. Or to create a way to recycle plastic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, these are things that people are thinking of doing.
Well, this is things again, like I said, the private sector could get involved in it.
Yeah.
I think they could be very
innovation. It's a form of innovation that they can do. Okay. I just hear these things and people were telling me this and I go, what?
Well, it's an interesting one that I came across in that regard. Dave and I, in Talking Niagara, did a report about this company in Nairobi in Kenya. What they were doing is they found a way to take the old plastic bags from the shopping and mix it with sand, and they can make paving stones out of it. Plastic and sand mixed together to make paving stones.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is.
Yeah. That's something that can have a long-term use.
Yeah, something that could have a long-term use. And they make these plastic and sand paving stones. You would think.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of the most interesting stories I've come across in the last 4 years.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, thank you for being with us, Justin. So
that was informative. Very informative on this.
Yeah. And sorry, you were saying?
No, I was just saying thank you for having me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
I very much enjoyed this, and I would love to come back and discuss environmental law or constitutional law or anything else you need help with.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So if you need to contact Invictus Legal, you can do so at 905-688-5598. Email Angela at Angela@We'reInvictus, or myself at Peter@We'reInvictus.legal. And the website is https://weareinvictus.legal. All right. And Angela's favorite bit of the show.
So what you heard today on Spin Legal, whether this show or others in the series, is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, then please contact a paralegal or a lawyer. They would give you some advice that's specifically geared to your situation and what you're experiencing. Just because something seems familiar when you see it on a podcast or see it on Facebook, the University of Facebook, okay? Just because you see something there, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to help you or be supportive in your context. So anyways, thanks for having us and inviting us to your living room.
All right, and have a great week.